For section 9.3, we're going to talk about weight and temperature. Luckily, temperature is really, really easy. You just have a couple of formulas. I don't expect you to memorize the formulas or any of the conversions that we're using. Your first test for chapter 9 will be online, so you'll have your conversion sheet there with you. And then on the final exam, you'll have conversions given to you for the specific problems that require them. Okay? So don't waste your time memorizing. Understand how to use the conversions and how to use the formulas to convert temperature. Now, for topic 1, we're just going to do a review of the US and metric systems of measure. We've seen both in section 9.1 and 9.2, especially 9.1. We kind of introduced US, we kind of introduced metric, and then we converted between the two as far as length is concerned. And then in 9.2, we just kind of glossed over that, but we did some of both. We did some dimensional analysis within the US system. We did a little bit of metric to metric. And then we did a lot of metric to US, like converting between the two systems. So just as a quick reminder, let's talk about the US and metric systems of measure. Now, for the US measurement system, for us, if we're talking about weight specifically, we would talk about ounces and pounds and tons. Okay, so you have two different versions of ounces that you'll see. In capacity or volume, you will have what are called fluid ounces. So think like in the kitchen, we have gallons, quarts, pints, cups, fluid ounces. Okay. In weight, we have pounds and ounces. So think like a mother comes home with her newborn baby and she's like, oh, my baby weighed in at 6 pounds, 15 ounces, or 7 pounds, 8 ounces, or whatever. So we have pounds and ounces. Okay. And then we have tons. All right. Now we do use dimensional analysis to convert within the US measurement system. So to convert from one US measurement to another US measurement, dimensional analysis. Okay. If we're converting between US to metric, so converting from one system to the complete other system, dimensional analysis is used as well. And dimensional analysis is the process of multiplying a unit of measure by one or more unit fractions to convert to a different unit of measure. Okay, now unit fractions, they're fractions that have a value of 1, meaning the numerator and the denominator are two measures that represent the same amount, they just have different units. So think like 12 inches and 1 foot. They represent the same length, but they're different units of measure. Now, when it comes to the metric system, what's so nice about the metric system is it's all based on powers of 10. So you're dealing with a basic unit. So when we're dealing with the metric system for length, in the metric system, the basic unit is the meter. I don't know how it switched colors. It's the meter. For volume or capacity, we're dealing with the liter. And then for weight, we have the gram. Okay. Now within the metric system, we have one single basic unit. So 1 meter, 1 liter, 1 gram. Or we could have 10 basic units or 100 basic units or 1,000 basic units. That would be kilo for 1,000, hecto for 100, deca for 10. We could also have 1/10 of a basic unit, 1/100th of a basic unit, or 1,000th of a basic unit. That would be deci, centi, milli. So we've seen this before. We're just kind of reviewing it. So the prefix is in order from largest to smallest would be kilo, hecto, deca. And then we would have one single basic unit, then deci, centi, milli. So if we're talking specifically weight, we would have 1 kilogram, that is 1,000 grams. We would have a hectogram, which is 100 grams. We would have a decagram. Deca has the abbreviation DA. So a decagram is 10 grams. We would have 1 single gram. Then we would have a decigram, which is 1/10 of a gram. We would have a centigram, which is 1/100th of a gram. And then finally a milligram, which is 1,000th of a gram. So this is 1,000, 100, 10, just 1, and then 1/10, 100th, 1,000. Somebody is like shooting a gun or putting off fireworks outside my house. And it's like, what? Like, is something going on this week? Anyway, So there you have it. Now, when you're converting within the metric system, all you're doing is multiplying or dividing by powers of 10. And for us, the shortcut we use is if we're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, we multiply by 10 for each step we have to move. If we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we divide by 10 for each step we have to move. It's really just moving a decimal. Okay? So I did tell you that there's like a sentence you can remember. I can't remember what you call these. It's not an acronym, but we have that King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. And it can help you remember the order of the prefixes for the metric system. So kilo, hecto, deca, basic unit, deci, centi, milli. Okay, so with all of that said, that was kind of a little bit drawn out, but with all that said, let's practice some just really basic conversions. We're going to do two US to US, two metric to metric, and then we're going to get into some of the weirder stuff from this section. Oops. There we go. So example one says perform each conversion, include units with each answer. We do not have any directions on rounding, so if it comes to the point where we may need to round, we'll just go 1 or 2 decimal places. Okay? First up, we have 46 pounds to ounces, and then next we have 11,500 pounds to tons, and then we have decigrams to milligrams, centigrams to grams. Let's just take a quick look at our conversion sheet. So again, if you have me face to face, you will have a printed copy of this. If you have me online, this will be available to you in Moodle. Okay, so we want to scroll down here to 9.3, which is weight and temperature. We have that 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. 2,000 pounds is equal to 1 ton. That'll help us do those first two parts to example 1. All right, so 46.5 pounds to ounces, we need to remember that there are 16 ounces, just OZ for ounces, to 1 pound. You can just use LB for pound. Just be really careful if you use LB and make sure there is a space between your number and the LB so that the L doesn't end up getting confused with a 1. Okay, so just be really careful with LBs. It might be better to do like a cursive L so that there's no confusion. All right. So we start with what we know. We know we have 46.5 pounds. All right, we want to multiply it by a unit fraction that relates pounds and ounces, and we use the conversion to create that unit fraction. So 16 ounces is the same as 1 pound. I want the pounds to be in the denominator so that they cancel, leaving an ounce in the numerator, which is my desired unit. Okay? So if we clean things up a little bit, we get 46.5 times 16 ounces. That's our numerator. Our denominator is really just 1 times 1 or 1, which doesn't really change anything. And then you can just use your calculator here. So if you've got your calculator, 46.5 times 16, and we get that there are 744 ounces in 46.5 pounds. So 744 ounces would be your final answer. Okay, so that's part A. Part B, we have 11,500 pounds. We want to convert that to tons. What you need to know is that there are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. Okay, so let's start with what we know. We know we have 11,500 pounds. Again, just be really careful with the abbreviation for pounds. Make sure it's completely separated from your number so there's no confusion. We don't want that to look like 165 or 16 or whatever. Okay, so we're going to put 11,500 pounds over 1. And then we're going to multiply by a unit fraction that relates pounds and ounces. Or not pounds and ounces, pounds and tons. We want tons in the numerator, pounds in the denominator. So 1 ton over 2,000 pounds. And as expected, hopefully it's expected, pounds cancel, leaving tons in the numerator, which is exactly what we wanted. We clean it up a little bit. The numerator, I get 11,500 times 1 ton. And then for the denominator, I get 1 times 2,000. So it just ends up being a simple division. You can use your calculator for this. So 11,500 divided by 2,000, and you should get 5.75. So the final answer here would be 5.75 tons. Okay. So hopefully this dimensional analysis converting within the US system, hopefully it's getting to where it's pretty easy for you. Take some practice, be really careful about where you put your units in your unit fraction, be really careful with multiplication versus division. Just watch those silly little goofs that you can make. All right, for part C, we have metric to metric. Okay, so I'm going to write out the metric system just kind of really quickly here. I have kilogram, hectogram, decagram. Remember, deca is DA and then whatever the basic unit is. So in this case, DAG. And then I have a single gram, decigram, centigram, milligram. And what is happening here is we want to go from decigrams to milligrams. So we want to go from here to milligrams. So to do that, we need to move to the left 2 times. So basically what I'm doing is I would take 4.2 and I would multiply it by 10 twice, okay? But that's really just the same thing as moving my decimal twice to the right. So if I have 4.2, I want to move my decimal 2 times. For each time you move after the end of the number, just fill in a 0. So we would say this is 420, excuse me, milligrams. I had a break from summer to fall and I haven't had to talk much the last few weeks, so it's a little scratchy. Okay, for part D, we're going from centigrams to grams. So let's write out the metric system. So King Henry died by drinking. Remember, by is basic unit for us. That's, I don't know why it turned that into a weird circle, but that should be just a G. By drinking chocolate milk. Okay, so we're going from centi, let me do it in red. We're doing centi back to gram. In order to do that, I need to move to the left twice. That would be equivalent to dividing this 620 by 10 twice. So divide it by 10, then divide it by 10 again, or you could just divide it by 100. All right, either way, that would be equivalent to moving my decimal to the left twice. So if you don't see a decimal, you assume it's at the end of the number. We go to the left once, twice. So that gives me 6.20. The cool thing is if you're dealing with decimals and it's not money, you don't need that 0 at the end. So we could just say this is 6.2 grams. And that's it. That is your review of the US system and the metric system specifically related to weight. So in the next video, we'll convert between US to metric. And then I think after that, we just have one more, yeah, just one more video where we do temperature. So 2 more videos and then we're done with this chapter. Whoops. I completely lost my video. I don't know what I did. Here we go.